You stand on the edge of a miracle every time you dare to believe that what you want is already yours, not tomorrow, not someday. Now, the moment you choose to accept your desire as a present reality, unseen but certain, life begins rearranging itself to match that inner acceptance. This is the quiet secret behind every transformation, every answered prayer, every shift that seems impossible. You don't wait for evidence, you become the evidence. Every desire that rises within you is not an accident. It is a whisper from the unseen, an invitation to step into a higher expression of who you truly are. When you feel the longing, the wanting, the ache for something more, it is not life teasing you, it is life calling you. You could not desire something unless its fulfillment already existed in spiritual form. The desire itself is proof of the finished work. And the moment you recognize this, something inside you softens. There is no more struggle, only acceptance. There is no more asking, only receiving. There is a beautiful idea that says, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours. The instruction is not to believe you will receive, but to believe you have already received. This is the heart of knowing your desire is fulfilled. You shift from wanting to having, from hoping to knowing. You accept the invisible reality before it becomes visible, just as a seed is accepted as a tree long before the first leaf appears. This inner acceptance is not forced. It comes from love, not fear. You don't beg the universe to give you what you want. You don't bargain or strain. Instead, you gently assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. You rest in it. You let it wrap around you like warm light. And in that rest, something begins to move. Softly, silently, certainly. Think of moments in your life when you simply knew something good was coming. Maybe you expected a message from someone you loved, and before the phone even rang, you felt it. Maybe you prepared for a job interview with such quiet confidence that the result felt secure even before you walked into the room. That knowing wasn't arrogance, it was alignment. It was the feeling of fulfillment before any proof appeared. And that feeling, that inner conviction, is the creative power. You know your desire is already fulfilled when thinking of it brings peace instead of anxiety. When the idea of it makes you smile rather than strive. When you no longer check the physical world for signs because the only sign you need is inside your own imagination. The moment you feel the reality of your desire more strongly than the absence of it, the moment the inner picture becomes more real than the outer conditions, it is done. There is a quiet assurance that rises in your heart when the shift happens. You stop rehearsing conversations. You stop doubting the timing. You stop measuring how far you have to go. Something within you settles and you begin to move as though the path is already cleared, because it is. The outer world always follows the inner one. It cannot resist the pattern stamped upon your consciousness. If you allow yourself to imagine lovingly, consistently, and without contradiction, you will begin to feel this certainty more and more. You don't have to imagine grand scenes. A simple moment of fulfillment is enough. A quiet inner, yes, this is mine, is enough. A single breath of gratitude for something not yet seen is enough. Gratitude is the language of the fulfilled. It is the song of the one who already holds the promise. And yet you might wonder, what if I don't feel it yet? What if I still doubt? Doubt is only a signal that you are looking outward instead of inward. The world cannot give you confirmation before you accept it first in imagination. Every visible thing begins as an invisible acceptance. So gently return your attention, again and again, to the inner state where your desire is already true. Be patient with yourself. You are learning the art of inner faith, the art of assumption. This is not a test. It is a remembering. One of the most powerful examples of this is the way a child plays. A child who decides they are a hero or a dancer or a creator does not question whether it is true. They step into the identity instantly, joyfully, completely. Their imagination is not separate from reality. They live it. And because they live it, they shape their world effortlessly. This is the innocence we return to when we assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. We become like children again, trusting, open, certain. You can know your desire is fulfilled when your identity shifts, when you no longer think like someone who is seeking, but like someone who has found. You begin to speak differently, not with desperation, but with quiet assurance. You walk differently, not with urgency, but with calm expectancy. You make choices that align with the person who already possesses what they once desired. The desire is no longer something outside of you, it has become part of you. There is a verse that speaks of things that exist even though they are not seen, calling them forth by faith. This calling forth is not loud, it is not dramatic, it is the soft whisper of conviction that says, "It is done." And once this whisper takes root, nothing can uproot it. Not time, not circumstances, not opinions. The unseen reality begins shaping the seen one, piece by piece, moment by moment. Examples are everywhere. People who felt healed before they saw healing. People who acted like business owners before they had a business. People who loved as though the relationship were restored before the first apology was spoken. People who moved with the confidence of abundance before a single dollar showed up. Their knowing created the path. Their inner acceptance drew the outer fulfillment. It is always inside first, outside second. Always, your imagination is not a place you escape to. It is the workshop of creation. When you dwell in the end, when you feel the joy of your desire as though it were happening now, you are creating the state that life must respond to. The world mirrors you faithfully. It may appear slow, but it is exact. It cannot produce anything that contradicts your most persistent inner feeling. This is why persistence matters. Not effort, not strain, but gentle repetition. Returning again and again to the inner feeling of fulfillment is like watering a seed. You don't dig it up to check its progress. You trust the process, and your trust becomes the proof. Eventually, there comes a moment when the inner fulfillment feels so natural that you almost forget you ever desired it. That is the moment just before manifestation. When the desire becomes normal to you, when it feels like the most natural thing in the world, the outer world must echo it. It cannot do otherwise. So how do you know your desire is already fulfilled? You know because you decide it is. You know because you feel it is. You know because you accept the quiet truth that the unseen is more powerful than the seen. You know because the desire itself is confirmation that the fulfillment already exists. You know because peace has replaced longing, gratitude has replaced worry, and inner certainty has replaced outward searching. You know because the moment you close your eyes, you can step into the reality of it without effort. And when you live from that inner acceptance, life unfolds around you with grace. Doors open, paths clear, people arrive, timing aligns. Not because you forced anything, but because you finally matched yourself to the version of you who already has what you once desired. Rest in the knowing that your desire is finished. Let that be your comfort, your confidence, your quiet joy. You don't have to see it yet, you only have to feel it. And when you feel it as real, when you claim it in imagination with love and faith, the world has no choice but to bring it into form. And something beautiful happens when you allow yourself to lean into this inner certainty. You stop chasing and start allowing. You stop asking, when will it come? And begin feeling, it is here. This shift is subtle, but it is everything. It changes the way you breathe, the way you speak, the way you move through your day. You begin to carry a quiet glow, an invisible confidence that others can sense even if they cannot explain. You become someone who knows, not someone who hopes. This knowing doesn't mean you never think about the desire anymore. It means that when you do think about it, the thought feels warm, steady, and complete. There's no ache, no pressure, no reaching. Instead, there's a feeling of alignment, like your heart, your imagination are finally speaking the same language. You hold the desire the way you would hold a gift you've already received, with gratitude, with familiarity, with love. There are moments when, in imagination, you may feel a sudden rush of joy, as though something has clicked into place. That is your inner world shifting. That is the moment the seed breaks open beneath the soil. You may not see the sprout yet, but life has already begun its work. Your emotional response, your relief, your joy, your quiet confidence, these are signs that your assumption is taking root, that you have crossed from wishing into claiming. You can tell your desire is fulfilled when your inner conversations change. Instead of rehearsing fears, you begin rehearsing gratitude. Instead of imagining obstacles, you imagine outcomes. Instead of questioning whether it will happen, You begin wondering how beautiful its arrival will feel. These inner conversations are the architects of your outer world. They build the structure that your physical reality later occupies. Even the way you respond to challenges becomes different. When you know your desire is fulfilled, setbacks lose their sharpness. You no longer panic at delays or detours because you understand they cannot interfere with what is already true in imagination. The outer world might wobble, but your inner world stays steady. You become unshakable, not because circumstances are perfect, but because your faith is. And as your inner state stabilizes, you begin to notice subtle confirmations in your surroundings, small echoes of your assumption. Perhaps someone mentioned something related to your desire. Perhaps you overhear a conversation that mirrors your inner thoughts. Perhaps an opportunity appears that nudges you gently in the right direction. These are not coincidences, they are reflections. They are the world rearranging itself around your inner acceptance. Yet you don't cling to these signs. You don't depend on them. You appreciate them. But your faith does not rest on outer proof. Your faith rests on the simple truth that you become what you assume. And because you have assumed the end, felt it, lived it, accepted it, everything else is simply catching up. There is a line that says faith is the evidence of things not seen. This evidence is not physical, it is emotional. It is the peace that comes from knowing you no longer need to strive. It is the joy that bubbles up when you imagine your fulfilled desire. It is the feeling of certainty that needs no explanation. When you feel this inner evidence, you have already entered the state of the wish fulfilled, and this state is creative. It draws circumstances like a magnet. It reshapes your habits, your decisions, your responses. It aligns you with opportunities you once overlooked. It guides your steps in ways you only recognize in hindsight. Everything you do from this state is infused with purpose, clarity, and ease. Not because the world suddenly changed, but because you did. There is a beautiful ease in this way of living. You stop forcing outcomes. You stop manipulating timing. You stop trying to control what was never meant to be controlled. Instead, you nurture the inner feeling of fulfillment, trusting that life is always listening, always responding, always unfolding exactly as it should. If ever you find yourself drifting back into doubt, simply return to imagination. Close your eyes and step again into the version of yourself who already has what you desire. Feel their joy, their relief, their pride, their gratitude. Let their feelings become your own. This is not pretending, this is choosing. This is claiming the truth of your inner world until the outer world matches it. And the more you practice this, the more natural it becomes. What once felt like effort becomes effortless. What once felt like imagination becomes identity. What once felt like a dream becomes your new normal. This is how creation works, from within outward, from assumption to expression, from unseen to seen. Every desire you hold carries within it the blueprint of its own fulfillment. You are never asked to figure out the how. You are only asked to accept the already, to live from the end, to feel the truth of your desire before it ever touches your physical reality. When you do this, you align yourself with the version of life that has already answered your prayer. Continue to rest in the feeling of your desire fulfilled. Continue to walk with the inner assurance that what you seek is already present in the unseen. Continue to nurture the quiet conviction that your imagination is not wishful thinking. It is creative law in motion. And as you keep nurturing this inner conviction, you'll notice that your emotional landscape begins to transform. Worry loosens its grip. Impatience fades. The need to monitor, measure, or question dissolves. You begin to live in a gentle rhythm of trust, where the unseen feels just as real, sometimes even more real, than what your physical senses perceive. This is the doorway into a life guided by inner truth rather than outer circumstances. When you operate from this place, you become less reactive to the world around you. You stop letting temporary conditions dictate your state of mind. You recognize that everything you see is simply an echo of past assumptions, not a forecast of your future. This understanding sets you free. It allows you to hold your inner vision steady regardless of appearances. You can look at a situation that once would have discouraged you and instead feel a quiet certainty rise within. This too is shifting in my favor. And it is. Your desire being fulfilled is not a future event, but a present reality in the unseen. When you grasp this, you begin to move with a sense of partnership, with the divine, with your own imagination, with the deeper intelligence that guides all things. You no longer feel alone in your journey. You feel supported, accompanied, uplifted. There is a loving presence that echoes through your thoughts, reminding you that what you desire is not only possible, but already done on a level beyond the physical. This awareness changes how you pray, how you affirm, how you imagine. You stop pleading and start agreeing. You stop asking and start accepting. Your prayers become acknowledgments rather than petitions. They sound more like thank you instead of please. You begin to understand that gratitude is not the reaction to the manifestation, but the catalyst for it. Gratitude is the language of fulfillment spoken in advance. And as this gratitude grows, something else awakens within you, the realization that you are not just the receiver of your desires, but the creator of the state from which they bloom. You realize that the power to assume, to feel, to imagine, to believe is the power to shape your world. You recognize your divinity in quiet, personal ways, not in grand speeches, not in dramatic revelations, but in simple, everyday moments when you choose faith over fear, knowing over doubt, inner truth over outer noise. In these moments, life responds immediately. Sometimes the response is subtle, a shift in mood, a sudden idea, a gentle reassurance. Sometimes it is unmistakably clear. A message arrives, a door opens, a situation resolves. But whether gentle or bold, the outer reflection always mirrors your inner acceptance. It cannot do otherwise. You may find that your relationship with time transforms. You stop worrying about when things will happen because the what in becomes irrelevant. If your desire is fulfilled in consciousness, then it is fulfilled. And the physical unfolding becomes a joyful anticipation rather than a stressful waiting. You live in a continual state of readiness, open to receive what is already yours. And this openness creates space for inspiration. You begin to feel nudges, impulses, quiet inner directions that lead you naturally toward the expression of your fulfilled desire. These impulses are loving, never frantic. They arise from the version of you who already has what you want, guiding you step by step toward the outer reflection of your inner assumption. You may also notice that old patterns of self-doubt begin to dissolve. When you inhabit the feeling of your wish fulfilled, you redefine yourself. You elevate your self-concept. You begin to treat yourself as someone worthy of receiving, worthy of joy, worthy of abundance, worthy of love. This worthiness becomes the foundation for every new assumption you make. It strengthens your ability to accept bigger desires without hesitation. There is a softness to this journey, a gentleness that replaces the hard striving you may have known before. You're no longer pushing against life, but flowing with it. You're no longer forcing outcomes, but allowing them. You're no longer living from lack, but from completion. And this shift doesn't just change one area of your life. It begins to touch everything. People respond differently to you. Opportunities recognize you. Circumstances rearrange themselves with an ease that surprises you at first and feels completely natural later. The world seems to bend itself around your inner state, not because you demanded it, but because you align with the truth of who you are and what you hold within. And in this alignment, you discover one of the most profound realizations, that your desire is not separate from you. It is not some a thing distant, not something you must chase or earn. It is an expression of you. It is the next chapter of your unfolding. It is the natural outpouring of your inner expansion. When you accept your desire as fulfilled, you accept yourself as expanded, elevated, and ready to receive. So continue to nurture the inner feeling of completion. Continue to walk in the quiet certainty that the unseen is already shaping your world. Continue to trust the gentle whispers of intuition, the warmth of gratitude, the peace that rises when you imagine your fulfilled desire. Continue to return to the end again and again until it becomes the only place your mind naturally rests. And as your mind begins to rest naturally in the end, something even more remarkable begins to happen. You start to feel as if the desire has always been yours. The feeling becomes so familiar, so lived in, that you no longer sense a gap between where you stand and where you once wished to be. This is the true mark of fulfillment when the imagined state becomes your emotional home. You walk through your days with an ease that once felt impossible, and you realize that peace is not something you find after manifestation. It is what creates the manifestation. In this place of inner rest, doubts may still try to whisper, but their voice grows faint. They no longer hold authority because they no longer align with the state you occupy. You have shifted internally, and once that shift is made, the old patterns lose their grip. You may hear a doubtful thought, but it will feel foreign, almost like a memory of who you used to be rather than a reflection of who you are now. This is a sign that the new state has solidified. Your reactions to the world around you become the clearest indicators of your inner transformation. Where you once might have felt urgency, you now feel patience. Where you once felt lack, you now feel completeness. Where you once questioned, you now assume. This inner shift radiates from you quietly, and others might not understand why you seem so calm, so grounded, so assured. But you will know. You will know that you are living from the fulfillment of your desire, not the longing for it, and life cannot help but respond to this fulfillment. You begin to attract conversations, opportunities, and circumstances that match the inner story you've been telling. The world seems to speak your new language. Synchronicities appear not as surprises, but as affirmations. You catch yourself smiling at moments that once would have stressed you, realizing that you are no longer living from fear, but from faith. The path ahead feels guided, lit, supported. As you continue living in this inner alignment, you discover that the state of the wish fulfilled is not rigid. It is fluid, alive, and deeply responsive. It doesn't lock you into a single outcome. Instead, it opens you to the best expression of your desire, often in ways more beautiful than you imagined. When you assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled, you enter into harmony with a wisdom far greater than the limitations of your old thinking. This harmony shows up in small ways, too. You may wake in the morning with a sense of quiet excitement, as if something wonderful is unfolding, even if nothing has changed outwardly yet. You may find your imagination drifting effortlessly to scenes of joy, success, love, or abundance, without effort, without strain. This is the natural movement of consciousness when it has accepted its desire as true. Even in moments of stillness, when nothing seems to be happening on the outside, there is a steady warmth within you, a gentle certainty, a knowing that does not need to be loud to be powerful. You begin to understand that inner conviction is the true cause, and physical evidence is merely shadow. The stronger the conviction, the clearer the shadow becomes. And as this conviction continues to grow, you start to notice that your desire no longer feels like a destination. It feels like an identity. You are not waiting to become the person who has it. You are the person who has it. Your imagination, your tone, your energy all reflect this identity. You think like them. You feel like them. You move like them. And because you have become them internally, life begins shaping itself around your new state. There is a deep joy in this realization. You no longer struggle to believe. You are belief. You no longer reach for fulfillment. You embody fulfillment. You no longer chase outcomes. You magnetize them through your state of being. This is the magic of assuming the end. The outer world bends to the inner one effortlessly, naturally, faithfully. And as you remain in this inner state, you will find that new desires rise gently within you, not from lack, but from expansion. Each one arrives as a whisper, just like before, and each one comes with the same promise. If you can desire it, you can already assume it fulfilled. You begin to see desires not as challenges, but as invitations to experience more of who you truly are. Through this process, you come to understand something profound, that the journey of fulfillment is not about forcing anything into being, but about remembering that everything you seek already exists in the unseen, waiting for your acceptance, your faith, your willingness to claim it. And as you continue living from the end, your life becomes a quiet, steady unfolding of inner truths becoming outer realities, one beautiful expression at a time. When you finally allow yourself to stand in the feeling of your desire fulfilled, Everything within you softens. You no longer wrestle with life. You rise with it. You no longer beg for proof. You become the proof. And in that tender, powerful shift, you discover the truth that was waiting for you all along. You were never chasing a dream. You were becoming the version of yourself who already lived it. The moment you accept the unseen as real, you step into a life shaped not by fear, but by faith, not by delay, but by divine timing, not by longing, but by love. And as you hold this truth close to your heart, let it fill you with a strength so deep, so steady that nothing in the outer world can shake the inner knowing that what you desire is already yours.